This happened 2 to 3 years ago when I was still a young preteen, so my memory of it isn't the best. Just outside of my neighborhood, there was a street leading two ways, one which was regularly traveled to get to my school, and the other that led to an intersection with a CVS, which was most often used to get into downtown San Antonio. Past the CVS, there was a Korean school which looked more like a house with a school sign, and an actual campus that I believe was a middle school. However, I did not go to this school. Across the street from the Korean school, there was an oddly placed house that nobody ever saw someone leave or enter, and even odder, enshrouded in bamboo, very tall, dense bamboo forests. Well, me and my brother, being weird preteens, were nearly infatuated with bamboo sticks as they were portrayed in movies and cartoons, so we'd always collect the dead sticks that had fallen from the forest into the sidewalk. One day, the pickings on the sidewalk were just broken sticks, so me and my brother did something that was honestly stupid. We walked into the slim entrance between the forests and to the house. Around the house was trash cluttered all around, and if I recall correctly, two broken vehicles that looked like they were being fixed for a while. We knocked on the door, heard some barking, and were about to leave after a minute when an elderly, sweet-looking lady came out. Me and my brother did not expect this, and were trying our best to explain how we wanted to go into the forest and pick ourselves out some bamboo sticks to use for fighting, almost like picking out a Christmas tree. She actually obliged, but I think told us she didn't want us to go in alone because there were bees or wasps inside there, and it was quite easy to get lost. So, she excused us for a moment while she went inside and got her shoes on. When she came out, she offered to give us a tour of the house as it sat on quite a big chunk of, again, oddly placed land surrounded by urban buildings. She took us around the back and I believe there was some odd machine. I can't exactly recall what it was, but it did something useless and was made from makeshift parts. She explained the previous owner was an inventor. She gave us some background on him and then told us about his son who apparently committed suicide in the bathtub inside the house. We went to the very back where there was an old shack that looked as if it was used for storage some age ago, but was now blanketed with tall, yellow grasses. I honestly got a little bit spooked at this point, and I felt as if someone was going to ambush us from somewhere while she was giving us this tour. Thankfully, nobody did. She finally took us to the forest after passing by the broken down cars. Most of it was just what it was made out to be, a literal forest of bamboo. I recall her telling us that all of the bamboo was connected to a single bamboo that was first planted and that was how the forest was made. Whether or not this information is true I do not know, but I found it interesting that she knew so much about it as she told us the previous owner, the inventor, had placed the forest. There was an odd trail leading directly to the middle of the forest, and in the middle was a chair, a table, and a typewriter. Sadly, me and my brother could not go there as she told us that was where all the bees had their hive, and she was not wrong. There were a lot of bees surrounding the typewriter. She did, however, give us a little story about how the inventor would just go there and type something up. We eventually walked out into a part of the forest in the front of the house, and she helped us pick out two sticks and told us how to excavate them from the ground. Something unrelated that only made the situation weirder was when she told us that at one point that she saw a dead body beside her property, I think by some storage lockers that were next to her house, but nobody believed her. We both got spooked from that point and ended up trying to leave, but not before she gave us slips saying she wanted us to come back and work for her during the summer. I feel as if she had something sinister planned. I honestly don't know what, but something seemed off about her. It was a Sunday, early in the morning. I live in the suburbs, but my parents own a farm that I enjoy going to because I get to see my dog. Her name is Molly. She's a mutt, but she's not a tiny dog by any means. At that time, I felt very safe around her and would often take her for walks in a forest that was nearby. The day started off like any other. My dad and I got in the car, drove around for a while, and arrived at the farm. I immediately got out of the car and hugged Molly. My parents always got angry when I hugged her since I'd smell like her for the rest of the day. I put her leash on and asked my dad if I could take her for a walk. He always thought that we would just go down a road and back, but I always found it more interesting to take her to the forest. I always felt a certain kind of peace and relaxation there that was unmatched by anything else. So we took a turn and headed to the forest. Usually, when we got there, I'd take her leash off so she could explore on her own. Most of the time, I'd carve my name into the trees or look for anything interesting. I was playing baseball with some rocks and a wooden leg, presumably from an old table, and then I heard it. Molly was barking at something. This wasn't usual when we were in the forest. I thought it was a fox or some other animal, so I quickly grabbed the wooden leg like a weapon. I knew that if it was a fox, it wouldn't attack, but I had a sense of security while I was holding it. I called out Molly. Molly, but she just kept barking. This was very strange for me since she always came to me when I called her. I followed the sound of her barks and stumbled across a scene I'll never forget. There was a man, probably in his late 50s, half naked, carrying a large machete in one hand and holding moonshine in the other. This was the first time that I stumbled across someone in the woods, let alone someone half naked and carrying a big machete. He was completely ignoring Molly and hacking away at the ground for some reason. I didn't really know how to handle the situation. Even now, I have no idea how I would handle it. "Sir, are you okay?" I asked in confusion. I don't think I understood the seriousness of the situation at the time. He turned around, revealing his face. He had some of the clearest blue eyes I have ever seen to this day. I could see them so well because they were wide open. "Come here, boy, look what I've dug up." I was afraid that if I didn't listen to him, he would start chasing after me, and that was something I wanted to avoid at all costs. I got closer but kept a good distance. I didn't see anything except for an empty hole. He returned to hitting the ground with his machete, occasionally taking sips from the bottle. I used this window of time to get my dog and started walking away slowly as to not notify him that I was leaving. But then I took one final glance at the man. His head was dug deep into the hole. I was intrigued, so I kept looking. I know, how stupid of me. He finally got up from the ground. I was shocked when I saw him carrying a bone in his mouth. I have no idea what animal it belonged to, if it even did belong to an animal. I had seen enough and started sprinting with my dog. As we ran, I heard him laughing, and then I saw something flying from the corner of my eye. It was that damn machete. I heard him yell, "Damn it." This made me run even faster. I know the forest very well, so I wasn't afraid of getting lost. I ripped through branches and bushes until I got out of that forest, but I didn't stop sprinting until I arrived at the garage, where my father was testing out lights on our tractor. I didn't tell him a single thing about the man since I was afraid that he'd get angry and wouldn't allow me to walk Molly anymore. Needless to say, I never went to that forest alone ever again. This happened to me and my friend Sam 3 winters ago. We liked exploring nature and walking around outside, and our friends had recently introduced us to this beautiful place in Wisconsin, Grant Park, for anyone familiar with southeastern Wisconsin parks, that we had visited with them 3 or 4 times. Every time we had gone with them, it had been a pleasant trip. We walked around, got to see some beautiful views of Lake Michigan, sat in crooks of trees, and talked about books and games and other things. We had been starting a new game of Hunter, The Darkness, a tabletop RPG game like Dungeons and Dragons, and we were using the park for scenic inspiration. It was great. For the purpose of storytelling, she and I are both 5 feet 2 females. The first time she and I went alone, we went around dusk to take some pictures that we could Photoshop for the game. This park is massive, and there are many bridges, footpaths, and winding roads throughout. We were walking over a bridge that sat against one of the roads, with dense woods on either side. As we were crossing, a car drives by and rolls down the window, and some guy leans out and yells "Hey" at us. We were both startled and jumped, but dismissed them and continued walking across the bridge. Less than a minute later, the same car comes back driving the other direction, and this time, the driver's side window rolls down, and the driver, another male, calls out, "Hey, ladies, come here." We picked up our pace, the car drives away, and right as we're about to hit the end of the bridge, we see the car come at us again from the original direction. We then book it up into the trees, up the hill, and we hear the car stop and the two men start yelling for us. We continued running and hid in the dark for 15 or so minutes until they left, and we ran back to our car and left. You would think we would avoid the park after that, but once we had gotten out of there and properly warmed over a hot chocolate from Perkins, we had a good laugh over having been so scared. We went back to the park with our male friends a few times, and nothing even remotely scary had happened, so she and I decided to go back, just the two of us, again. Sam and I often spent our afternoons and early evenings exploring the outside, hiking, geocaching, just sitting outside in parks and talking, so we had just decided to add it to our repertoire. We headed back around dusk again, and with the camera to take more pictures, especially since we hadn't gotten the shots we had wanted the first time. Now, obviously, looking back on this, we both feel incredibly foolish having gone back, alone, and around the same time and at the same place, but as I had said, we had gone a few more times with our male friends, and even when we had just one male with us, nothing had happened, so we thought we were just being skittish. Anyways, we went back, and were about to walk over the same bridge when a car rolls by, and, as you guessed, the window rolls down, and some guy just yells out some random noise. This time, we don't wait for them to drive around, we duck into the woods and start walking back toward the pier. We figured we'd abandon the other photo spot and just explore the pier, take some lake shots. Not really what we were looking for, but we figured if we made it in time for the sunset, which was almost all the way down, we could take some nice pictures over the lake just for fun. The way that the pier is set up is that there is a long thin road from the top of a giant grass hill, down and around a curve, and into the parking lot. The pier is at the end of the right side of the parking lot, about 200 yards away. If you walked from near the pier down the right side of the parking lot, there was a little bridge that led into a development with a tennis court that sat next to the preserve. So, we began walking down the road to the lake when the same car from before drives down into the parking lot by the pier. They didn't say anything as they drove past, but we still decided to slow down and decide whether or not we wanted to continue down by the pier. The car turned around in the parking lot and came back up the road. The car reached where we were and stopped, so we immediately turned and started walking down the hill. All of the windows rolled down, and we saw that there were 4 guys and 1 girl in the car. They yelled hello, and Sam and I turned and waved. One of them then said, "Oh, hey, you're cute," and the others joined in, "Hey, yeah, wait for us." Now, mind you, we are 2 small females, but we were also super bundled up in large winter coats and hats. You could barely see any of our faces or our shapes, so they didn't really have a lot to base it on. We've been ignoring them, and we hear someone yell, "We're coming back for you," as they start driving up the hill. Sam and I decide not to take any chances and start running down the hill. We hear hooting and hollering and see them disappear over the top of the hill. We start running toward the bridge, and once you've gotten over the bridge to the left, there was a concrete deck with a drop-off to a ramp about 5 feet tall, so that if you got off the bridge and jumped down right away, you'd be at the bottom of the ramp and couldn't be seen from the other side if you ducked down. Which is exactly what we did. We hear the car speed back down the hill, and 4 doors open and close as they all start screaming and laughing. "Come here, girls. We'll be nice. We just want to play." Most of them took off to the pier, but 2 of them stayed behind, and we could make our bits and pieces of what they were saying. Where do you think they went? I don't know, we'll find them, etc. Sam and I are huddled and freaked out, and once it has been silent near the bridge for a while, we decide to peek out to see if the other 2 have also left so we could sneak back up the hill or make a break for it somewhere else. We peek over, and there's a guy on the other end of the bridge, and he clearly sees us. "Over here," he screams to his buddies and starts running across the bridge to us. We take off toward the development, running around the side of the tennis court while being chased by 3 of the guys. Only one of them is very close to us, about 30 feet, but the rest were catching up faster than we would have liked. We took a quick turn between two houses in the subdivision, and we luckily never saw them from that point on. We got back to our car by walking through the forest preserve incredibly slowly, dashing across roads, terrified out of our minds. We left that night and called our friends we normally went to the preserve with. From then on out, they insisted on accompanying us anytime we went there.